I want to talk about Urban Meyer's new contract. He will be paid at Ohio State more than any other college coach. His contract is going to be $4 million a year plus $2.4 million total in retention payments. $6.4 million a year for a college coach. I can think of many things that are wrong with that. Many things. But maybe I'm just being negative. Maybe it's a good thing. I mean, listen, the guy's got a great track record. He's from Ohio. Hell, he's from my hometown. He's from Ashtabula. So, yeah, he'll probably be successful, whatever that means at Ohio State. Still got to deal with a couple of years of troubles from before. But I expect him to field a competitive team. In that aspect, God bless Urban Meyer. The Buckeyes will do well. Wonderful. But $6.4 million a year? Do you realize what an increase that is from Jim Tressel? Jim Tressel was making $3.5 total in 2010. He was making $3.5. Urban Meyer is going to make $6.4, making him the highest paid college football coach. So what are my problems with it? Number one, you're paying a college coach, a university, who I'm sure if you asked anybody that is in academia at the collegiate level, the presidents and deans of universities, if you ask them, what is your mission? Would it say, hey, put a winning football team on the field? No, they always do a big dance when it comes to college athletics. We are about education and preparing people, blah, 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 and physical education and our athletics department are also part of that, blah, blah, baloney. It's about the do-re-mi. They make a bunch of dough that funds a bunch of other sports activities and other things at Ohio State, so they're willing to pony up the dough. When shouldn't your focus be on education? Number two, you're paying him this amount of money, which is a huge increase. You couldn't have gotten him for six even, 5.8. I think you would have gotten him at a lot less than they paid him. Even if his agent was playing hardball and saying he wouldn't take a penny less, he would take a penny less. My next problem is you're paying him that amount of money when we have a cash shortage in the state. We have a cash shortage a lot of places and a bad economy. If Ohio State can afford to pay Urban Meyer $6.4 million a year, and you need to pay him that amount of money because the football team brings in so much money, why do we still give them money as taxpayers? Why do we still give them money? If the argument is they need a top-notch coach and football team because they fund so many things, then maybe they should be more wise with their cash. If they can put that kind of cash out there, why do we still give them money? Kurt, on a cell phone, you're on 700 WLW.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for taking my call. It's a business proposition. You got to look at it as return on investment, and what they're trying to do is preserve as much brand equity as possible. First thing that I want to point out is that out of the $4 million base per year plus the retention incentives every other year, none of this money comes from public sources. The Ohio State Athletic Department is completely self-supporting.
Yes, but hang on a second. They also fund, 32 or 34 other athletic programs or teams in the school?
They fund 35 other sports. The nearest school has 26 sports. So they're funding sports that you would have to look on Wikipedia for. And they're still going to be able to support those sports. Those aren't going to be touched. They're not going to be scathed.
Well, if they can do that, then why do they come to us for the rest of the university when they need funds? Why do we still give them money?
Well, why why would they bother coming to their whole mission is not to go to the university for funds. They actually generate revenue for the university.
No. I understand that. If the football team can generate that type of revenue, then why don't they fund 10 less sports and stop coming to the taxpayers? If you can pay Urban Meyer $6.4 million a year, dang, you don't need my money to fund other parts of the university.
Well, they're not. They are actually, when you look at it, they're not funding anything with the taxpayer. They're not funding anything athletic with taxpayers.
No, that's irrelevant. It is the athletic department is part of the university. Mm-hmm. And if the university and their brand is on football helmets and T-shirts supporting the football team and the basketball team, and they can bring in that kind. Hang on a second, Kurt. And they can pay a coach to be the highest paid coach in the land, then they don't need my tax dollars to fund anything else. They can simply take a little bit more from the football team and spend it wherever else.
They are already doing that.
It doesn't matter. They should be doing it more then, Kurt.
They examine the library construction, and you talk about 36 sports. Well, what does that mean? That means that there's a lot of kids who are getting scholarships that would not otherwise get scholarships. But if you look at capital construction projects, the brand new Ohio Union that was built, which houses a multitude of classrooms, meeting spaces, etc., a lot of that was predicated on athletic department revenue. If you examine the library construction, a lot of that was predicated not only on athletic revenue, but revenue generated from Coach Tressel individually. The same way with Ohio State's world-class cancer hospital and heart health hospital. A lot of that was generated by the athletic department. So with this brand equity that they're building by spending this kind of money to hire an Urban Meyer, what they're going to be able to do is to continue to raise private capital to further develop the capital infrastructure of the Ohio State University so that it benefits the people of Ohio as a whole.
Kurt, does the university as a whole take in public dollars?
Absolutely, but if you look at the amount of money that the Ohio State University takes in per pupil, it's far less.
That is irrelevant. That is irrelevant. It is irrelevant because they are paying a coach to be the highest paid coach, and they are indirectly taking my tax dollars to do it.
They're not even, I mean, basically, really where the big bulk of the money came from to pay these coaches? It came from a couple of people. Actually, it came from trustees Alex Shoemate, Robert Schottenstein, and Les Wexner. Those are what we call philanthropists that have really donated huge to the Ohio State University and to the surrounding community and state of Ohio. So,
Kurt, this is a big shell game, and that's my problem with it. And it's not just Ohio State. It's all over the place. We have these coaches, and we talked about them already, these Teflon coaches. The reason Tressel isn't there and the reason Joe Pa is gone from Penn State is because we think these people are like gods.
Yeah, but you cannot equate the two. I mean, there's Jim Tressel and Joe Paterno. What Joe Paterno did is, somewhat akin to a crime. And
I'm not, Kurt. I'm not saying it's the same thing. Of course, what happened at Penn State is nowhere near what happened at Ohio State, but we do still have and live in this era of the Teflon coaches where we are paying a football coach $6.4 million, and still they say we need tax dollars. We need people to fund other parts of our university. There is something wrong if you're telling me your university is really about education. They have these huge alumni donors, as you've said. They have gargantuan endowments. Then you know what? The tuition should be half of what it is.
But what are they supposed to use? If you bring up a separate point there, I think that is a perfect point more for the discussion than this, because the return on investment for a coach's salary is just astronomical return. If you look at the endowments, I'm an insider for UC and for the Ohio State University, and they're both in different positions, obviously. And UC actually talked about there's a big debate with UC whether or not they should tap into their endowment to actually improve their athletic infrastructure and some of their other infrastructure, when really most of these endowments are supposed to have specific tags to them or earmarks.
Sure, people that donate money say I want it to go specifically toward whatever, building a new stadium, building a library, providing scholarships, whatever. But that's fine. Then you need to go to that first instead of spending, tax dollars or something else. This all goes together, Kurt. They've created these little fiefdoms that when it comes to...
It's not the shell game you're claiming it to be.
No, Kurt, it really is. It's a shell game, and it's a shell game masked in a bunch of BS.
It's real. We can respectfully agree to disagree.
Kurt, what is the purpose of universities? What is their mission?
For the Ohio State University, it's a land-grant institution here in Ohio. Its primary purpose is to promote the better education and welfare of the entire state of Ohio. And at this point in time, it's the leading academic and research institution in the state of Ohio.
All right, so you didn't mention football. You didn't mention athletics there.
Well, the great thing about what football does for the Ohio State University is it builds the brand equity. It generates a tremendous...
Kurt, the problem is I'm losing you. I'm losing you there. I appreciate the call, but thanks so much. I'm losing you. I'll get some more calls. 513-749-7800, the big one, or pound 700 on AT&T. This is what I always get. I always get a bunch of different angles that tell me the status quo is fine. That's essentially what Kurt's saying. No, it's good we paid Urban Meyer to be the highest paid coach, going up by $3 million a year from Tressel. It's good because it builds brand equity, and it funds all these other things. Meanwhile, your tax dollars are still being used on these other things. If it's really that much brand equity and they're bringing in this much money, then stop asking me for tax dollars. If you've got these alumni that are donating money and you've got a huge endowment, why do you still need my money? Why isn't the tuition cheaper? How come presidents of universities make millions of dollars a year? We have these debates when issue 2 came up about cops and firefighters and teachers just trying to make a basic living. Meanwhile, you got people like Urban Meyer making $6.4 million a year, when Ohio State obviously can pay that because it's coming out of the what the football team makes. Then why are you still coming to me for tax dollars to fund Ohio State University? Other things there. Let the football team pay for those other things, and I'll spend my money on teachers, cops, and firefighters. We just keep going around and around and around, and we all know there is a problem there when it comes to higher education. If you're getting public tax dollars, it is a big shell game with money. People could continue to tell me why university presidents and coaches need to make this amount of money, yet I still have to pay them. This does not add up. More of your calls coming up next. 513-749-7800, the big one, or pound 700 on AT&T. It's Doc Thompson on the big one. All right, I think I figured it out. The problem with paying Urban Meyer that amount of money and arguing that it's good because it builds up the brand and makes more money for the Ohio State University is they keep waffling when it comes to universities between public sector and private sector. The only thing worse than the public sector in dealing with issues and funding and everything else is one that waffles back and forth, a quasi-public sector like Fannie and Freddie. In this case, I'm told Urban Meyer is worth that amount of money because he will bring in even more money because he will field a winning team and build up the brand, and he will bring in more money for people in the seats and merchandising and more alumni and whatever, and that may be true. But that is a private sector principle. Private sector principle. He negotiated a contract, not as part of a union, but as an individual and the talents and name that he brings. Great. I'm all for that. If we are going to follow that line of thinking, then stop taking public dollars, the Ohio State University. But then I'm told, well, no, because he funds other stuff and blah, blah, blah. So then you want to go to the public sector attitude? One or the other, pick one. Pick one or the other. If you're going to go with the notion that he is worth that amount of money based on his talents, then stop taking public dollars. If you're going to take public dollars, then bring his salary down. Doug on a cell.
Hello.
Do you like the amount of money they're paying him? Is that a good thing?
Grossly overpaid.
You saying that based on his talents or just in general?
Well, his talents, he's been off for 2 years. And then, like you said yesterday, his team had 30 arrests while he's down in Florida.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If you're bringing him in after, if you're going to bring him after Tressel to try to clean it up, that's one of the issues. Yeah. It's not just fielding a winning team, right?
Absolutely. And another thing, too, you figure how much he's getting paid just to run a sports program versus how much is the guy getting paid to govern the state. What a farce that is.
Yeah, which is more important? You're right. You would think that the governor is, right?
Yeah. Question I want to ask about yesterday on your news people.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about that gasoline dips below
$3,
$3 a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that afternoon, thanks to all that advertising, that went to $3.29.
You saw it after it went to $329 in the afternoon?
Yes.
I didn't look at it yesterday afternoon. I looked at it yesterday. I thought it was still $299 in a place, but it's already gone back up?
$329. It went up yesterday afternoon.
Son of a mother puss bucket. I
agree with you 100%.
All right, thanks, Doug. I appreciate it. I'm so frustrated by the game. Just when I start to see it go down, I'm like, yes, all right. $290. Oh, back up to $390, $329. Son of a gun. All right, I'm going to get some more of your calls coming up, and I'm going to run down the highest paid college coaches. We'll do it next, 700 WL. Doc Thompson at 700 WLW. Lance's deal of the day is at 700WLW.com. You get half off Fitness 19 in Mason. It's good for a month-long membership, up to 3 months, $30 for just $10. Look for Lance's deal of the day at 700WLW.com. While you're there, please check out my blog. I've got that picture of the caramel, peanut, bacon bark. Recipes there as well. But also the question, what should Ohio's slogan be on license plates and driver's license? They're looking for one. You can look at the new license plate design. The picture's on my blog, but also post what you think should be a new slogan or phrase. You can just post it right there, and then we'll go over them at about 11:06, 700 WLW. Get to the highest paid coaches in just a second, but some people have been holding. Let's get to Mike in Columbus. How you doing, Mike?
Good. Hey, Doc. I think one thing that maybe you are missing here is, and I haven't seen the final numbers yet, but the university typically only pay the coach. I mean, Ohio State maybe is only going to pay him $500,000 to coach. And the rest of that money comes in shoe contracts, apparel contracts, TV and radio appearances, and that's where he gets the bulk of his money.
So then what you're saying is they don't have to pay him but $1, and then the rest could come in.
Well, I guess you could say that.
I mean, if you're going to go with whatever. And I understand, listen, if they're bringing in shoe contract money and television and everything else, that's fine, Mike. And if he's really worth it, I mean, I'm a businessman. I get it. I mean, I'm a free market guy. If he's worth it, pay him that and pay him more. But don't play the public funding game then.
Well,
one or the other.
I'm not defending a high.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very high salary. I mean, gross as far as you look at it. But when you're talking about public funding and the private sector playing a part of it, most of his salary is going to be paid from the private sector.
Yeah, that's my point. If it's going to be private, then keep it private. If it's going to be public, keep it public. That's the game they keep playing back and forth. As soon as you are skeptical of the amount of money they're paying him, then it's, well, that's private and he's worth it. They want to apply private sector principles because, well, you're criticizing them. But when it comes to other stuff, well, we still need state funding because we're doing all kinds of great things for the state and all the scholarships and its education. Then it becomes very public sector. They are using it against us, waffling back and forth between these two very different principles as it suits them to continue to get our do-re-mi. I want to nail it down. It's disgraceful for even the people who supported Issue 2 to not recognize we have a problem when it comes to universities in America and certainly in the tri-state. It is disgraceful for you people out there that supported Issue 2, and I certainly did support parts of it. It's disgraceful for you to not be critical of university presidents, compensation of professors when they start getting above six figures, and critical of football coaches when they get above 6 figures or even above 7 figures several times over. How do you say we need to get spending under control in the public sector when it comes to a teacher that's making $50,000 a year down at Mason High School or Lakota or some other place, and a cop who's making $50,000 a year who's working, the beat in Cincinnati, and say you're not going to be critical of all the spending that goes on at the universities? Pick one. The Ohio State University, UC, everybody else, pick one. Are you going to be public? You're going to be private. What's it going to be? If you're going to apply those principles and say Urban Meyer is worth it because he brings in money, fine, then stand on your own 2 feet. Otherwise, my tax dollars are still going to your university. If you say we need it and we need to have strong universities, it's good for the state, good. Then put public dollars into it. Prioritize and put them into it. Stop waffling back and forth when I'm critical of you. Here's what college football coaches make. These are 2010 numbers. Jim Tressel at that point came in, and that's the reason I'm using 2010 numbers to show what Tressel was making as a permanent coach. He was 7th on the list. At that time, he was 2nd highest in the Big Ten. Total compensation, putting him 7th on the list. Jim Tressel, 2010, made $3.5 million. The highest in the Big Ten came in number 5th from Iowa, Kirk Ferentz. He made $3.7 million. Between the two of them, coming in at number 6 was the 3rd highest in the SEC, Louisiana State, Les Miles. The top 4 in this order, Nick Saban from Alabama was the highest paid. Of course, Alabama in the SEC, $5.1 million total compensation. 2nd from Texas in the Big 12, Mac Brown. Oklahoma in the Big 12 came in 3rd, Bob Stoops. Urban Meyer at that point, coming in just over $4 million a year for Florida in the SEC. So the top 7, 2010, Nick Saban, Mac Brown, Bob Stoops, Urban Meyer, Kirk Ferentz, Les Miles, and Jim Tressel. 8th on the list, Wake Forest in the ACC, $2.9 million, Jim Grobe. You got Mark Richt from Georgia in the SEC, came in at number 9, making $2.8 million. And rounding out the top 10, Bobby Petrino from Arkansas in the SEC, $2.7 million. Some other notable salaries, 2010 college coaches. Let's see here. In the Big Ten, again, this was Rich Rodriguez when he was still there at Michigan, making $2.5 million. Michigan State's coach, $1.7. Wisconsin paying their coach $1.7, putting him 35th on the list. Ron Zook, Illinois, from the Big Ten, $1.5 million, put him 42 on the list of highest paid college coaches in 2010. Coming in 54, Cincinnati, Butch Jones, $1.1 in 2010. Bill Stewart, West Virginia, was 61st on the list in the Big East, making $900,000 a year. I'll tell you what, poor Bill Lynch from Indiana, the lowest paid coach in the Big Ten, $650,000. That's all he made, $650,000 a year. Sad, isn't it? You probably feel pretty bad for him, don't you? Only making $650,000 a year. Rather Big Ten. So you got Purdue, Danny Hope in 2010 came in 62nd on the list, making $900,000, and Tim Brewster in Minnesota making $800,000 a year. Pretty low by comparison. How did Akron get away with making the top 100 paying coaches? They're pretty far down the list, but they came in 91st, $375,000. Tim Beckman from Toledo was making $370,000. Let's see. On the very bottom of the top 100, Northern Illinois, $346,000 they were paying their coach. Central Michigan, $350,000. Ball State, about $350,000. Bunch of them down there, about $350,000. Can you imagine that? Only making $350,000 a year to coach a football team. And often you get other perks because your kids can go to college there sometimes for free or discounted, something like that. Sad. I feel bad for him only making $350,000 a year. It's Doc Thompson of the big one, 700 WLW. Got a big meeting tonight. Employees of the post office, the Dalton Street Post Office, Cincinnati, a big meeting tonight. Well, they're pretty upset, as you can understand, about the proposed closing of that postal location. U.S. Post Office wants to close about 250 different locations, those type of facilities, processing plants, and that around the country. They're trying to save $3 billion a year, and this is part of their plan. To save the $3 billion if they close these different processing centers, 250 of them around the country. Yeah, it's not fun for anybody to lose their job, and if you're in that situation, I understand you're pretty upset. If you're somebody that is still relying on the post office to deliver your mail, you are misguided, or you are very old, or maybe both. We're just not heading that direction any longer. I don't see anything that's going to turn it around. We're suddenly going to be post office dependent again like we once used to be. Whether it's 5 years or 15 or 30 or 100, it's just not going to exist that way anymore. So they're going to have to make some changes. This is one of the ways to get it done. Now, there's some frustrations because people say, listen, if you close those processing centers, the mail is going to have to likely travel a greater distance, even if you're only mailing across the street. So if the closest processing center to you is 20 miles away right now, and it goes to 100 miles away, well, the letter that you mail to the next street over will have to go to that processing center likely, and then back. So if it has to travel a greater distance, it's going to take even longer. Tonight's meeting is at the Northern Kentucky Convention Center in Covington. It starts at 7 o'clock. If you are interested in this, if this is very close to your heart, certainly attend. It'll probably be great information. Problem is the $3 billion a year that they're going to save on this is just this year. I mean, it'll be every year after that they'll save it. But they're continuing to hemorrhage money. They lost $5+ billion last year and likely will be in similar situation next year. And that will continue because people continue to use mail less and less. That's the reality. You may not like it. You may say, Doc, it has to do with the salaries and everything else. That may be part of it, but it still comes down to people using mail less. And as soon as you admit that to yourself, the sooner we can move beyond. The sooner we can say, yes, the people that have jobs and they're doing the job now will continue a phase out slow so they don't get the rug pulled out from underneath them. People can still continue to use the postal services, the services provided by the post office that are still reasonable at this point, and slowly just fade the thing away. Come up with a 10-year plan or so. Again, tonight's meeting, Northern Kentucky Convention Center in Covington at 7 o'clock. It's employees of the Dalton Street Processing Center in Cincinnati. Should be pretty interesting. In fact, if you are there, I have an engagement tonight. I can't make it. But if you're there, by all means, please pass along via email tonight, doc@700WLW.com, the highlights of the evening. I'm pretty interested in that. Maybe we'll take some calls on it tomorrow as well. I'm going to tell you about a man from Virginia next. A man from Virginia who was secretly filming people in the restroom. A little bit of a problem with it. I'll explain next. 700WLW. Oh, my golly, I've got the best video on my blog at 700WLW.com. There was a reunion, a luncheon reunion for members of the Canadian Football League. Did you see it? Oh, James, the producer, saw it. This is awesome. I'll give you the short version, but you really have to watch it. I'm not sure why it played out the way it did, but they bring in some former rivals. The guys are 73 and 74. One of them has a severe limp and walks with a cane. They are both physically very reflectant of their age and people who played smash mouth football. These guys are not in the best shape. They look old and broken. They have the one guy on stage. He's blah, blah, blah. The other guy comes, as they introduce him, hobbling out with his cane. I mean, he's like Willy Wonka at the beginning with the cane, right? He's kind of hobbling out. Stops at the corner of the stage. The other guy says something kind of smart aleck to him, competition, little smack talk. And he says, oh, yeah, well, you can stick it up your whatever. The guy walks over and tries to hand him, it looks like a flower or something. I don't know what he's doing, but he gets a little too close to his face, and the guy bats him away. And then a scuffle ensues, and he hits him with his cane, and he takes him down. They're rolling around on the ground together, punching each other, these two old former Canadian Football League players. It is hilarious. Then when they finally pull him up, they're helping the guy with the cane up. The other guy is still smack talking. Still talking. The people are like, dude, seriously, this is just sad. The crowd thinks it's a joke. No, it's not. You got to see the video. Yeah, until the punch. Then they were all like, oh, that's not. Then it's just unpleasant, uncomfortable. How was your Thanksgiving? We got other holidays coming up, and I've got a bit of a holiday warning to you. A guy in Henrico County, Virginia, is in a little bit of a trouble. His wife was going through his phone. Not sure what her motivation was, if she suspected something or if she was just going through his phone. But she was going through his phone, and she located a video on his phone. A video of an adult female using the restroom. It looked as if he had been secretly videotaping this person. Kind of a hidden video. And she looked at the video and she said, look at that. He has a video of an adult woman using the bathroom. And that woman looks an awful lot like, yes, it is. It's my 57-year-old mother. Yes, he had videotaped secretly his 57-year-old mother-in-law. The wife was a little bit unhappy, so she called the police. The police showed up. She directed them, after showing them the video, to a hole located between the garage and the bathroom, the connecting wall between those two. He apparently had been in the garage, secretly videotaping her over the Thanksgiving holiday. That's going to be a little bit of trouble for you. Well, because now he faces a misdemeanor charge of filming or videotaping an undressed person, according to state law. Little bit of trouble there, some legal trouble. But I'm thinking that may put just a little bit of strain on your marriage. That's going to be rough for the other year-end holidays. Well, even if your wife doesn't say, that's it, I'm done, because you have recorded my mother using the bathroom, thinking that may strain your relationship with the mother-in-law. Could. Now, there is the possibility that the mother-in-law may have enjoyed it. So maybe not. Maybe it'll actually bring he and his mother-in-law closer. Who knows? I'm thinking it would be a bit of trouble. What possesses you to secretly videotape your 57-year-old mother-in-law? Now, I saw his mugshot, and he looks pretty unhappy, as you might imagine, being mugshotted for something like this. But I have to probably refrain from complete judgment until I see a picture of his mother-in-law. No, it was not included in the stories I saw. Of course, it's still wrong to videotape somebody like this. But at first, you'd be saying, videotaping your mother-in-law, what is wrong with you? That's disgusting. But I haven't seen his mother-in-law, so I'll have to go ahead and reserve judgment. It's Doc Thompson in the home of the best Bengals coverage, 700 WLW Cincinnati.